Hello, darling. It's me, Tessianos, host of the ongoing comic book discussion podcast. And if I got a Halloween treat for you, this October I am hosting a horror comic marathon for 31 days. That's right, my frightful fiends. Every single day from October 1st to October 31st, OCD will review a horror comic to count down to the greatest holiday ever conjured. You can follow OCD on Instagram at OCD Podcast, Facebook at facebook.com/OCD Podcast, and Twitter at Ongoing Comic Pod. It's going to be a hauntingly good time, so be there, or just be there. Ooh.
Why This Film, the podcast where we reach back into your childhood, pluck out a movie, rewatch it, and have a chat about it. I'm Emily Slade, and welcome back.
You watched it so many times before, and now you're gonna watch it again. But it's been so many years since you last saw it, and now you show it to your friends, and they're like, What?
What am I watching?
Why this?
What is this?
Why this film?
And I'm joined today by Vicky Gaskin. Hello!
Hello!
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And your chosen movie is 1997's Romy and Michelle's High School Reunion. The IMDb breakdown. Two dim-witted, inseparable friends hit the road for their 10-year high school reunion and concoct an elaborate lie about their lives in order to impress their classmates. Why this film?
It's just brilliant. Like, I think it's just so fun, and it's just about friends, and you kind of don't have to worry about it. And I remember seeing it, and when I was rewatching it, I definitely watched it too young. Like that is for sure. I was talking to one of my sisters, and we definitely rented it out of Blockbuster. So I reckon I saw it 97, 98. So I was about 12 or 13. And I was watching it like, we should not have been watching the film. But getting none of the sex references in the film, like it's about friends and like learning to love yourself and just kind of not caring what anyone else thinks, and it's just I love it. I just love it so much.
So it was you and your sister, and you was it just like a random pick one night?
It was we were trying. I was talking, so I've got two sisters, and we did a lot together. We still do, but we broke it down. Lucy, we broke it down, and we were like, we definitely rented it from Blockbuster because we were discussing how our parents should have stopped us from renting it. And I think like because I'm really tight with my sisters, I think like there's always that like there's something about like the sort of the solidarity of female friendship that like roots itself in sisterhood. So and also yes. I'm a huge Friends fan, like obsessive, like really predatory Friends fan. And so I think like Lisa Kudrow's in it, and I think like I can imagine us being like, it's Phoebe, and they're wearing bright dresses, and that's what sort of led us to the film.
That's completely understandable. Yeah, it is a 15 over here in the UK. So yeah, I mean it's funny because this was the first time I've seen it, and I think if I'd watched it at 12, I wouldn't have had a clue of half the things that were happening. And yeah, I think possibly
such explicit like sex references, like when they're going up and down on the spin bikes, and she's like, what is it that I've written it down? Hey Michelle, what does this remind you of? And I'm like, what must I have thought they were doing? Like,
literally, like, oh yeah, riding a bike, you know.
Yeah.
What are they like? This is such a funny one. Romy and Michelle's High School Reunion has been in my what's the word? Periphery? Does that make sense? So many years. I mean, 97. So it's a very old movie. So every time I went into Woolworths, RIP, and was like looking for like Van Helsing on DVD or whatever, there would always be a copy of Romy and Michelle's High School Reunion. Everywhere. I knew the poster. I knew what it was. I I've never seen Friends. I feel like I need to come out and see it right now.
Oh my god.
But I knew that Lisa Kudrow was Phoebe in Friends, and I recognised her as Lisa Kudrow, and so I was always like, she looks like she's playing a Phoebe-ish. Not that I know anything about the intricacies of that character, but I know that Phoebe's the
I can clarify.
funny
Is it
one.
in the Phoebe genre?
in the same vicinity.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. I always looked at it and I was like, what the hell is that about? And it never jumped out to me as anything that was of a particular genre, which, you know, I think is a testament to the movie, because it doesn't fall into any particular sort of like, it's definitely not a rom-com, and it's definitely not a this, it's definitely not, if anything, it's like a road
it's like
movie,
I think it's like a Kinder Surprise. Like, it looks like one thing,
Yeah.
but when you crack it open, it becomes sort of something else.
Definitely. And so I was so excited to watch it, because for years I think I looked at it sort of snootily, where I was like, ugh, two like dumb looking women on the cover in like weird outfits, Lisa Kudrow doing like a Phoebe vibe, no thank you, I'll pass. And then as I've gotten older, like the more people I've gotten to know, people have been like, this movie is so good, and I'm like, is it? And they're like, yeah, no, it's really good. And I'm like, I trust you. So when you suggested it, I was so excited, because I was like, oh my god, what is it going to be? I'm going to crack it open and like,
I was so
try
glad
it
you
out
picked
and
it. I was like, please
see
pick
what's
this
it all
one.
about. It's not like anything I've watched before. It's got elements of stuff that I've watched before, but like, it's so great. It's just one of those movies that you have to watch when you're younger, because it's got so many important lessons in it, and they're done so well. I'm not going to skip around too much. I think we should try and go through it as best we can, like bit by bit, because otherwise I would just be like, this bit and this bit and this bit and this bit and this bit. Like,
And it is episodic. I think like there's sort of
Yeah.
3 very clear like chapters. There's like them thinking about going to the reunion. There's what I call like the Twin Peaks like chapter in the middle, where
the
it's like
extended dream sequence.
yeah. And then the sort of how it really goes. And so it's sort of.
So is this something you've watched a lot throughout your life? Did you keep coming back to it, or did you watch it when you were kids and then you sort of never revisited it?
I've watched this regularly throughout my life, not like loads, like every few years. So it was, you know, we were talking about this. It was one of the tables at my wedding. So yeah, me and my husband picked our 8 favourite films, and one of them, the crossover, was the top table, and then the other 7 films each were the tables. So this was one of mine, and in fact, I have a really close like group of girlfriends from secondary school, and half of them sat on the Romy and Michelle table, and so like I'd sort of regularly watched it, and then when it came a couple of years ago to like, you know, these are films that, you know, were going down in history as like, you know, what everyone would see as like our sort of top film. So I was like, I'll rewatch it again and just check that it's like worthy. And I was like, fucking is.
Yeah. Oh my god. So Romy and Michelle are, I mean, the IMDb breakdown called them dim-witted. I wouldn't go as far as to call them dim-witted, but they're just living their lives. They're just a couple of girls that are like in a flat share together in LA, just like living their best lives, best they can, and they find out about this reunion, and then as you say, they sort of, I mean, who wouldn't? Like, if I got a fucking invitation through the post today that was like, oh, high school reunion, I would either do a Heather and be like, hey, you can fuck off, or I would do a Romy and Michelle and be like, oh god, quick.
What do I take?
Get a new job. Do something else. And it really resonates with me for that panicked feeling of, even though we like to think we're past that, I think a lot of us, given the opportunity, it's not like constantly in my brain, but if you were to suddenly put me in that situation, I would be like, oh god, no, I do care about what the people from high school think of me, because they were like the first people that like
it distills it, doesn't it?
With.
Like, and it's like Romy and Michelle, they're loving life, and suddenly when they have to sort of, it's like they look at it through someone else's lens, and it's the same. Like you're like, yeah, I'm kicking it, I'm doing great, and suddenly you're like, oh my god, like I have to
Now
shorten
you
this
have
down
to-
into this is what I've been doing for the last 10
That's
years.
it. You have to like suddenly present yourself very visibly in a sort of concise and like successful way, and be like, well, actually, it's not good enough that I've done this and that and this and that, because you have to just walk through the door and be seen as like whatever you kind of want to be seen as.
And in our
or
industry,
whatever.
there's that panic of like, oh God, they're going to say, what have you been on that's on telly, or like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And you're like,
Yeah. Even though you've had like a ridiculously successful career and done so much brilliant stuff, it's like, oh, so I didn't see you on TV, so I guess you just haven't been working, and you're like, ah! But they're great. So we have the little, we have the flashback of them in high school, which fucking Meredith Blake just making a living out of, what is the actress's name? Meredith Blake is what she plays in the Lindsay Lohan Parent Trap.
oh, Lisa Luder.
Lisa Luder.
Actually, I
And,
think they're semi-interesting. She's great. And like, I
She's
was
so good.
watching the film and was like, every like few notes, I'm like, I hate Christy. Christy Masters
Yes!
is horrible. She's just awful.
She brings up these like genuine feelings inside of you, and like the reason why this movie is so good is because, I mean, every one of these movies has that sort of like stick it to the bully kind of ways, but this one does it so adultly and like so like genuinely, like, you know what, why don't you actually go fuck yourself, because
it's such a great
you
moment.
suck.
Yeah.
It's so good. So you sort of establish who the crushes were, who everyone is. You've got about 5 or 6 sort of main kids from high school that we're going to then obviously follow in the third act. I want to talk about the dream sequence now to sort of get it out the way. That was the one bit of the movie. Like, the minute it started, I was like, okay, I think we're in a dream sequence. And then the more it carried on, the more obvious it became that it was a dream sequence. And I have to say, that was the one bit that I was a bit like, I think there could have been a different way to get these feelings and ideas across without, I don't know, it really like weirded me out for some reason. I was like,
It's so strange. I think like
It's
watching it
very
back as an
strange.
adult it's so much weirder. And obviously I've watched Twin Peaks since I've like watched it like a few years ago, and like it's so weird, but like I really love it. Like I think it's just my sort of very much my bag. And then like I noticed that like the balloons are in the shape of like a carrot and a banana, which are the magnets that were stuck to her
Yeah.
back, and and
it's like the Chrissy room, and like,
yeah.
I think it's because it did dupe me for a bit, and I was like, oh no, is this where the movie's going? And then I was like, oh thank God, it's going to be a dream. It's going to be a dream. Because I was like, what have you done to Alan Cumming? How could you? His beautiful face.
And his face doesn't move as well.
It
It's just
doesn't
like,
even
like a
look
mask.
so horrible. And that really upset me. And the
Yeah.
whole Billy Christensen thing. I think that's what it was. I think it was too realsies. I was like, how could you? Like, the friendship.
What have you done?
It's pretty sad. But it was cool. I got it, and I liked a lot of the stuff that they did in it. They just leave Alan Cummings alone.
Yeah. And I think it is like a taste, that kind of direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much of that in this movie, and I really, really respected it for it's just sort of like, and now we're gonna do this, and I'm like, fucking go for it. Like, I'm having a great time. It was skipping all over the place, but I'm gonna bring it up because the second it happened, I was like, is this the single greatest thing captured on film? Yes, I think it is. So Romy and Michelle have fucking fucked the system. They're in their gorgeous clothes that they made themselves. They've strolled back into the reunion, and they're like kicking ass, and Alan Cumming turns up, and he's a multi-millionaire now, of course he is, and he comes towards Michelle, and he's like, all I ever need in my life now is you. And she, best line in the movie, she's like, if Romy can dance with it.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck you!
Yeah.
And he takes both of their hands and guides them to the dance floor, and they begin the greatest thing I have ever witnessed. Because part of me was like crying with like happiness and like success, and just a sort of really cathartic sort of like all of my teenage emotions were there, and I was so happy for them, and it's just fucking great.
It's just the dance is everything. Like you sort of get to that moment, and like when I watched it just like a few days ago, I was like, I'm just gonna have to watch it again. So I just because I was watching it on DVD because I still do DVDs, and just sort of like skipped back and watched it 3 times.
Yeah,
and the same
totally
with the dance
fair.
that they do in the club at the beginning. I'm like, these women, and Alan coming later on, it's just so perfect. It's just so brilliant.
It's so good. And I was really worried that it was going to be another dream sequence, and then it wasn't. It was real. It happened, and I was like, fucking.
And I think the other great thing about we've skipped to the end, is that like the last scene, Sandy's lent the money, but you're never sure whether Michelle got with Sandy or not, and it kind of doesn't matter. And you're like, she could be with him, she might not be with him, but like they're just folding scarves, running their own business, and telling Heather that she shouldn't smoke, and like.
It's genuinely so good. I'm so happy that happened, because they get into his helicopter after the dance and he takes them away, and we assume that he sets this shop up for them after it's completely justified, because the fucking fashion editor of Vogue has said that their outfits have worth.
Yeah.
And it's making money and it's a successful business, and she kisses him before they get into the helicopter, which I was okay with, because I was like, hey, we're about to get in your helicopter. It's been really lovely.
We have
like,
a
it's really
great
good to
erection
see
joke
you.
going on.
Absolutely. Like, you can have a kiss, of course. Like, this is really amicable and, like, absolutely. And then, there's no sort of, like, he comes into the store and gives her a kiss holding a baby. There's none of that. There's just sort of, like... Because she never liked him in high school, and I was really worried that they were going to fall into the trap of, like, and now everything's perfect because she's got him and he's rich. But no,
and also the moment she turns, like, because I was worried, like, as I sort of got older, you sort of go, oh god, did I just sort of like watch this like a Disney movie and sort of like believe it? But he's like, I've got all this, what don't I have? And she's like, your own country. Like, she's still like, nah. And he's like, you, Michelle. And I think it's like once she, like, they do the dance is when she sort of like softens to him, and it's the right point to fall for a guy when he's like, I'm gonna dance and do an amazing dance with you and your best friend, and then that's when you're like, yes, you can stay.
Absolutely. It's so well done. All of the sort of like, that's such a good way of put it, that Disneyfication, that Disneyfied ending. A lot of these sort of movies where you go back and like stick it to the high school bully ends with romance. But this movie does it in a way that you are like, you believe it. It's not just like a ticking a box, and it's not just like and now I guess they should kiss because, oh my god, otherwise they failed. Mm-hmm. It's like Heather Mooney is my
Janine Garofalo
idol.
is just, oh my god, brilliant in this film.
I have never seen her do anything bad. I love her so much, and I think I saw her name in the credits before I saw her character appear on screen, and I was like, fucking yes. Like, even if she's only in this movie for like 2 minutes, that's going to be the greatest 2 minutes of this movie. And she showed up, and I was like, fucking look at her with a cigarette and her eyeliner,
effing and blinded and smoking.
I love her so much. And she has a really wonderful character arc. Like, she didn't necessarily need one. This is Romy and Michelle's story, and yet so many people are going through so much stuff. And the realization of, like, hey, you guys made my life a living hell, but I made Toby's life a living hell.
She's like, I never got the chance to make someone's life hell. Yeah. And Toby, as a minor character, is just brilliant. Like,
stealing every scene.
Heather Mooney, you haven't changed a bit. Like, I think as well, like, I think that, like, that was me at, like, secondary school. Like, just like, keen, this is what we're gonna do.
Just want to get involved in everything.
Yeah.
It's when they're in the limo and she, like, slides along the top and she's like,
come
hey
on.
guys, we're counting the vote, come on. And then, like, slides out again.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, this is a dream.
And then she flies out of the sunroof in her bra. And you're like, yeah. I get what's going on here.
I get it. You can't fool me. She's wonderful. And this is the thing, they're all sort of stereotypes, but they're also kind of not. Because, like, they're archetypes, but like Heather Mooney is just Janine Garofalo, and I goddamn love her so much. I'm so happy that she gets her happy ending, and it's not even her ending. Her happy ending is still just off to her business meeting, wearing a cute dress designed for her by Romy and Michelle.
And no one's ever told her that she shouldn't be smoking. And then like Romy's like, has anyone ever told you this? And like, oh yeah, I love all of that. Justin Theroux's like cameo when he appears under the Stetson right at the end.
So funny. And like I get it as well. I really got her like defensiveness, because this sort of guy in a cowboy hat has been like flicking cigarette ends at her the whole time that they were at high school. Every time she asked for a light, 'cause they were the two that would go out and smoke. And she's a successful inventor businesswoman. She rides a Jaguar. It's like a dragon and a Jaguar.
I mean, that would be awesome.
That's what I was doing. I was like, right. She drives a Jaguar because she invented like a fast-burning cigarette paper. And, you know, it's so funny. Romy and Michelle were under the impression that if they had just invented Post-it notes, that would be enough and that would be success. And she has done something like that, basically. And she is rich and winning at life in theory, but she's still unhappy and like sour and like sad and angry. And I do think in that final scene, she is, and they comment on it. They're like, you know, as spiky as she is, I think she's happy and like.
Yeah, I've just given birth to my own baby girl who smokes and says shit a lot. It's like, I think like everyone knows their place in that film so well. Like everyone just gets exactly what they're there to do. And like I hate Christy, but I don't know the actress, but she does it so well. Like she knows so well. She's there to be a fucking bitch, and she just like doesn't hold back.
Julia Campbell.
Yeah, she's
who you may know from a bunch of other stuff. She every choice she makes of like, because it's so easy to play that sort of like I'm the bully, but she's like the worst kind of bully as well, because she's not even like hot cheerleader. She's like more like an Ashley from Recess, where it's like fashionista, but not even that, like Southern Belle. Like, you know, she's got a Confederate flag at home, and like
she's not a bully because she's got shit going on. You're like, she's just bored,
she's just
and
nasty.
And yeah, that real sort of like, I mean, I did love in the initial dream where they all had matching daiquiris for their outfits. It was so good. And like, you could tell it was a dream because of the fashion conscious color brain of like Michelle. So good. And I love that one of the bullies is now the fashion editor of Vogue. I was like, that's so great. Because initially when it happens, you're really following Romy's story and you're like, God, like someone else is legitimately successful and I'm lying about Post-it notes, and this is a real bummer because she bullied me back in high school. So that's really annoying that she's successful. And then she fucking saves the day.
She steps out of nowhere in like this killer like suit that of course the editor of Vogue wears, and is like, and that like velvety lipstick that you're like, no one in real life could ever pull that off, but you look amazing. Right. And she's like, actually, I'd call them not too bad or whatever. Like just and just walks off.
Like, you. And then she's like, well, I still think they're hideous, don't we, girls? Why don't you let them think for themselves for once, Christy? Boom! And she doesn't even like, I was expecting her to sort of go and reconcile with Romy and Michelle, but she just like basically winks at them and like strides off. And I'm just like, fuck yeah! Like, that's so good. And this is what's so nice. We're following Romy and Michelle, but we're also seeing how other people go, and like, you know, everyone's stories without even hearing most of it. Like Billy Christensen, who can go fuck himself.
Oh, absolutely. It's the only way he's going to ever, you know, get anything, isn't it? Oh my God.
He's so awful. So he's Christy's boyfriend, and he later marries her, and they have 3 kids. And obviously, like, he's an alcoholic, and he's got a terrible marriage, and he's unhappy. And you know, you don't feel good about that, but it's that classic sort of like, what I didn't like is that often the bully girl will have a boyfriend who's just like,
oh, come on. Don't be so mean. They're not that bad. He's just as evil as Cameron. They deserve each other.
He's like goes up to Romy and Michelle's like, were you guys like totally in love with me in high school? And you're like, oh, like
no. You just.
I think like Michelle, like she actually quivers in that moment, doesn't she? Like leans away from him.
He like touches her arm, and she's like, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Loved that little payback where at the original prom he says that he'll dance with Romy, and then they leave and Romy's just left on the dance floor. But not left, because Time After Time starts playing and Michelle's like, I'll dance with you. I cried. I feel that.
That's where it really
hard.
starts, doesn't it? The emotions come up and you're like, oh my god.
And then later on, this is as well while I was like, this has to be a dream, because if I was directing this movie, I would have started playing Time After Time again. It's like a obligatory.
Yeah.
And then I was like,
and then it comes,
and then it did
finally.
start playing, and I was like, yes! Majestic. So good. But so, Billy Christensen can actually go fuck himself. Alan Cumming is so cute. I love him so much. He needs to be in more things right now. And he's like, he doesn't push it. He does not, like, he doesn't push the part too early, and just sort of, he's like sprinkled like the hundreds and thousands, isn't he? And just like every time he comes, it's like boom, and it's so perfect.
And him arriving in the helicopter with their like yeah,
it's so satisfying as well, because you know that he was like bullied by everyone, and like just so humble about it. I know he has that whole line where he's like, well, it depends how you define success, and he lifts up all of these millions of things that he has. And I was expecting him to then be like, but if you just define it by being, because I thought there was going to be a whole thing about the fact that they'd stayed friends through high school and how like important, and that's a form of success in other people's eyes, but they didn't really touch on it. But it was kind of implied, where people were like, oh hey Romy, where's Michelle? Oh hey Michelle, where's Romy? Like, you guys are inseparable, and that's who you guys are. Like, you're just the best of friends, and like that's really lovely. I love how fucking weird they are.
Yeah.
I think there are not enough like weird female protagonists, and everyone's weird in this movie, and it's great. And Romy and Michelle are the queens of it, because it's just so refreshing to see female lead characters allowed to just be like fun on screen. And so like when she's in the club chatting to this guy, and he's like, I sell Armani suits, and she goes, I cut my foot earlier and my shoe is filling up with blood. I have to go. It's like, yes.
But it's the joke on top of the joke where she's like, I really like your suit. Is it an Armani? And she's like, he's rich. He's a suit salesman. Oh, the build.
Oh man, it's so good. And like, as you say, the dance that they did in the club at the beginning, they just whack it out of nowhere, and I was like, I fucking love this so much.
Yeah.
And yeah, as characters, they're so great, and they're individual as well. I think what I used to mistake when I looked at the poster was that they were like kind of samey, but they're completely different. And
are you a Romy or are you a Michelle, do you think?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think I'm a Janine Gruffalo. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, fair, yeah.
But if I had to choose, probably a Romy, because I would be like, we've gotta like do this properly, and then I would be like, I completely give up. This was the worst idea ever. Like, that would be me. What about you?
I'm a Michelle. But I think that's as a result of watching this film so much. Like, I look back and I'm like, I think the way I am is because, like, I had Michelle there in the back of my head. Like, it doesn't matter what anyone else says. Like,
yeah.
And I think I've always been, like, on the borders of sort of weird but not too weird. And I think, yeah, she's always been there. Like, it's okay, just have fun and you'll be okay.
Yes, that's so wonderful when they finally come to it and they're just like, look, we're going to have fun at this reunion. We've come all this fucking way. What is even the point in moping now? And I think that's why I'm a Romy, because I would be like, there's no point, I'm just going to go sulk now. And it would take someone else to be like, look, we just need to go and have the fucking best time ever.
And then she properly, like, goes in at Christy, like, instantly. She's like, I'm gonna have fun, and I'm gonna go and do this. And I think there's a moment even when Michelle's like, are you sure you want to do this? And she's like, absolutely. And just, oh my, it's like the mic drop of mic drops, isn't it? You're, what is it? You're a bad person with an ugly heart.
Yes! Oh, it's so good. You're just like, fuck you, Christy. Oh man, it's so satisfying. And then it just escalates and gets better and better and better. And then Alan comes and then they dance, and it's just like, oh, fucking yes. Oh. It's so good, man. I'm really, really glad that I finally watched it.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I was like, oh my God, she hasn't seen it. What if you hate it? And then we've got to talk about it from these like two different opinions.
Weird. It is weird. And I think there are parts of it, like, as I say, the extended dream sequence, once they're like, when it was like 70 years in the future, I was like, I get it. Like, I get what we're doing here. I don't need to see them in like old people prosthetics. Like, I'm aware of what's happening. Yeah. Because like nothing particularly like funny or interesting happened in that like little old person segment other than, oh wait, no, yes it did, when she's like trying to bring up the middle finger and she's so old, she's like, Argh!
You can hear her like boop, boop, going like and that does not look like Mira Sorvino anymore when she's old. I think Lisa Kudrow looks like her, but I look at her like she properly, yeah, she's
weird in those prosthetics.
Yeah.
But like everything else, it was just so much fun. And like, you're so right, that feeling of just like, I'm happy, I'm cool with it, and then the minute you have to compare it to all the people that you met when you were at your like worst time because you were like going through puberty and everything sucked, and now you have to like bring your life up in front of them and be judged by it, even though like they suck and their lives suck, and like, oh man, it's so satisfying.
Yeah.
Like, even the, like, immaturity of, like, her dress being, like, lifted up when the helicopter goes up, and they're like, I was there, like, thank you, Christy.
Serves you right.
It's such a bitch.
And, like, Christy's, well, there's that moment where Michelle's like, oh my God, 3 kids, you must feel so tied down. And she's like, no, I feel very fulfilled. Yeah. And you're like, whoa, she is not happy.
She is not happy. Well, at least we didn't get fat. We're pregnant, you half-wit.
Well, I hope your babies look like monkeys. Oh my God.
It's such a journey. Like, so much happens, like, emotionally, and like, it's a really bizarre little movie. I mean, who directed it? David Merkin. I've never heard of him.
I mean, but it's brilliant that his surname is Merkin. Because I looked him up for this and was like, I don't know him, but his surname's Merkin.
Oh, nice. And it's based on a play, I think, or at least the writer of it is Robin Schiff, who is a woman. You can tell that this was written by a woman.
Yeah.
Which is another reason why I think it's so good. Like, I've slowly been introduced to all of these older movies that had like female creative teams and female characters that were telling these stories that I craved so much, but they was always so lost behind all of these like, oh, let's follow the teenage boy and his angst and let's hope he gets over it and let's give him a prize that's a woman growing up. And now slowly I'm being introduced like I fucking wish I had this as a teenager. I think it would have been really like useful.
I think that's why it's stuck with me over the years. Like at no point in my life have I not like been like really pleased to come back to Romy and Michelle. Like you know, they're just sort of mascots.
Such a great little gem. Like it's a really, really strange little movie. Like I can't really describe it because it's when I read the plot as well a few months ago, when someone was like, this movie is so great, they go back to their high school reunion and they pretend that they invented Post-its, I was like, I wonder what that's about, because that's not what the movie's about. That's like what's gonna happen. So I wonder what it's gonna be like about. And you're right, it's so much deeper than its poster leads to believe, but its poster is so perfect for it. And I wouldn't know how you'd market this movie.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I don't know how well it did at the box office.
I feel like it wasn't like a smash, and probably for that reason. And I watched an interview, I think it was a couple of years ago, like when all of the Me Too stuff was happening, and Mira Sorvino was talking about sort of all sorts of stuff, and how, you know, her career had essentially been ruined by Harvey Weinstein. And she was saying that it was marketed at like women in their 30s. And there was a lot of discussion about the amount of swearing, because she was like, this movie is like, it's for the girls at high school as much as it is for the women going back. And it turns out we were 12 and 13 renting it from Blockbuster anyway. So, but I think that it doesn't belong in either of those camps. And I think that's why it's like aged well, because my age then is now, I mean, I'm definitely way over 10 years out of secondary school, but like you can you come back to it, don't you, give it like a second life.
And you'll get something else out of it. So when you're a kid, you're like, oh my god, believe in yourself and don't care what anybody thinks. And then when you're an adult, you can get the like, not that that's what it's all about, but you then get the sex references, and you think it's so true. Like when they were swearing, it wasn't jarring at all, but I was sitting there being like, I think that's why I thought it felt strange, because it has everything about being aimed at 12-year-olds, but then it's like, here's 3 sex jokes in a row, and I'm going to say fuck, like a lot. And you don't get that in like the movies aimed at 12-year-olds. So I was like, I'm really enjoying this, but I'm really noticing that they're like swearing a lot, but they're also trying to tell me to be myself, and that's okay. So you're right, it's completely perfect for all age groups, and I think that they swear and have lots of sex jokes is fine, and I wouldn't change anything. No. And I would just send it out to 12-year-olds. Fuck me. Like, if a 12-year-old can fucking watch Heath Ledger slam someone's face into a pencil, then they can fucking watch Romy.
If you've got a 12-year-old who says fuck a lot but believes in themselves, on balance, you know, like,
you've done a good job as a parent. You're fine. Yeah. So it's a really interesting one. In its sort of tone, I guess. Which again is, I think, why I would always look at it on the shelf and be like, what the fuck is that?
And I think it was made in a time, like, we have a bit more of like this sort of subversive films that are sort of straddle genres and stuff now, but like in the mid-90s that wasn't like a thing. So in
the 90s, like, I mean, movies were weird in the 90s, like they were, but if you think of the sort of teen movies that were coming out in the 90s, I mean, like,
if I remember correctly, like, Not Another Teen Movie, I think, must have come out late 90s, early noughties. So it was even before. I might be wrong. I don't know when Not Another Teen Movie came out, but like, it's sort
2001.
of 2001. Like, so before
right
people started looking back and making fun of teen movies, sort of on a big scale.
On like a definitely. I know what you're saying. Because as well, we've had the whole of the 80s with everything that John Hughes ever did. So we have this idea of what a teen movie is. But you're right, because Romy and Michelle are like that, honestly. So before they go back to the reunion, they're trying to get really good jobs, and they're trying to get dates as well. And she goes to this place to try and sign up for, like, I don't know, speed dating or something, and she skips to the queue.
Oh, it's singled out. It's like it was a massive like MTV dating show, like in the early 90s.
This is the thing, I didn't get it. There was a couple of things that I didn't get because of the 90s, and she goes to the front of the queue and she's like, "This is a dating emergency," and the woman there goes, "Sorry, we try and keep it 25 and under." And it was at that moment that I was like, A, fuck you. B, like, yes, before Fleabag, we had Romy and Michelle. Like, the 25 to 35-year-old woman is never represented on screen. Nope. Ever. We don't exist. There's no casting calls for us.
Nope.
There's no roles for us unless we make them ourselves. We don't exist. And so for Romy and Michelle to live in that sort of, like, 25 to 30 bracket, I'm like, fucking yes.
Also, like, suddenly you're like, 25 is so young. Like,
yeah.
Why is the cut-off 25?
So great. Like, what have you done at 25? It's not like the
Yeah.
50s where the teenager was only just becoming a new phenomenon. Like, oh, you only graduated university like 2 years ago. Like, Jesus Christ, stop. But I have a chip on my shoulder about that, if you can't tell.
I think it is the right chip to have on your shoulder. But you're right. It's like that sort of, like a woman who is, approaching 30 or just on the other side of 30. Like, I find a lot, like, in my sort of demographic, and I think this is where Killing Eve comes into it, that sort of 30-year-old woman who's sort of established in her life and doesn't have kids, you know, but is sort of, that sort of in between where you're like, this is where we're all living. There's so much here to be writing about and doing.
Absolutely. This is the thing. We're so cool and interesting.
And like smashing it and like...
and having a great time and just like got so many cool stories and we've been so many places and we've done so much stuff, and they're just like, no, we want you either like widowed or like
younger crazy.
Like, what the fuck? I mean, not even gonna go into that in terms of like how society is like, get yourself a younger model. Like, why? What is a 45-year-old gonna have in common with a 21-year-old? You're gonna talk about like the wireless? What? I don't know, that was rude. Do you know what I mean though? It's like, what the fuck are you gonna talk to a 21-year-old about? Like, she doesn't remember the 70s. Like,
nope.
Ugh. Hate it so much. But yeah, man, this movie does it have a cult following that you're aware of?
I think it must, right?
Yeah,
like
it feels like that kind of film that will have, not in the way that like The Princess Bride does, which is like the top tier sort of cult movie.
I think this is the kind of movie that is like, I think because it is so inherently female, it's not got the like empire reading cult following of a lot of other films, but everyone that I've said, like, I'm rewatching Romy and Michelle, and this, like, every sort of woman that I say, particularly at sort of around my age, is like, oh my god, I really need to rewatch that film. It's that kind of sort of like, I guess, like an undercurrent of a cult following that it sticks to people.
It is a cult following. It just so happens that the pen holders are all men and they don't take these films seriously because they don't understand them. Like, for better or for worse, and not to like dick on male reviewers, but like fundamentally it's like, we all sat down to watch Birds of Prey the other day, and me and my mum and my sister really fucking loved it. We thought it was great. My dad didn't like it. Now, that could be for a number of reasons, but it's possibly because it was him having to be confronted with an experience that he didn't understand because he's never done it before. All of our lives, we're confronted with these movies, with these experiences, with male leads, and we don't know what they're going on about, but we do because we've been exposed to it all of our lives as the norm.
For sure.
So we know exactly what men are going through all of the time, all the different varieties of men. What are women going through ever? Because you only get one, and she has to cover the whole gender. And then you get movies like this, and you get movies like Now and Then, and you get movies like Birds of Prey, where finally they're showing you the female experience, and it's critically panned because all of the male writers are like, I didn't get it. And I thought it was dumb.
It's like, Ghostbusters remake all over again. Like, I loved the Ghostbusters remake so much. And it got like such a bad reception, and you're like, come on, you've got these like 4 like really talented comedy performers in the middle of it. It's never going to be the original. Like, let's just get past that, because it's never going to be the original Ghostbusters, but it was absolutely amazing. And like, you can't really say that you didn't enjoy it without being like, but the Ghostbusters are girls.
This is the thing, it's not fair. Like, I'm sure there were these conversations, but it's never detracted from the success of it, where the Batman Begins and The Dark Knight came out, and like, people were probably like, he'll never be as good as Jack Nicholson, or he'll never be as good as Mark Hamill, and then like he was, so then everyone was like, oh, okay, I guess we can love both. Like, oh no, you couldn't possibly compare them. So where's that logic when it comes to Ghostbusters then? Surely we can't possibly compare them, but now you're telling me that we can and it sucks. And then of course they turn around and they're like, oh, I get it, I didn't like Ghostbusters 2016, so I guess I'm a sexist.
Yeah. Saying it as a joke doesn't make it not true.
Literally, because like, what reason did you not have to like it? Because there is too many of you. There is a suspicious amount of you that didn't enjoy it when it is legitimately a good film. For me to not be like, because they had vaginas. Was it because they had vaginas? Was that the reason? And like, maybe it wasn't. Maybe people genuinely didn't enjoy the movie, but like, they always feel the need to really justify it when they didn't like Ghostbusters 2016 and they're talking to me. They're always like, but because of like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh no, do go on. Yeah, okay, sure.
That was the best punctuation with a sip of water.
But it's true, and this is such a wonderful female experience.
Without being like, like they're girly characters, but it's not like girly female driven. It's like it's sisterhood, I guess. And I think like just anything that has sisterhood in just like grabs my heart, pulls it out, and like I can't watch My Sister's Keeper anymore. It like that is like overload of sisterhood. But it's just great. And I think like
it's emotional.
Yeah, and it's sort of, even if it's not your actual sister, like I'm really lucky that I have I have amazing female and male friends, but like some of the like queens around me, like you watch a film like this and I'm like, I'm into double digits of the amount of women that I love, and I can't handle it, and I need to text them all because we're in lockdown, and I can't hug any of them because I live with a boy, and like it's just
yeah. It's so true. It is a sisterhood. It's like I recently watched Practical Magic, and like that.
I need to rewatch Practical Magic.
All of these, so many of these like little 90s gems that were just like, hey, women. And they got lost under the noise of like Wayne's World and stuff.
I tell you what, I've been watching over the weekend, which is a 90s female phenomenon, Sister Act. I was like, oh my God, I just did like, it sort of came back with a flash and was like, yeah, this is another example of like a very different type of sisterhood, but like, oh my God,
but still valid. There were so many, and yet they feel so lost to me, and I don't know why. They're just not talked about in the same way. You're absolutely right, bringing up Empire as the sort of like line of goodness.
Yeah, like no disrespect to Empire. No, like I'd love a read of an Empire, but there is a demographic that comes with Empire, I think, and I am not that demographic.
No, it's true. It's like whenever I would be like, oh, let's have a look at the top 100 movies ever made, and they're like Alien, Terminator 2, Ghostbusters, blah 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 blah, and you're just like, oh, really?
I mean, they are great films, but there are also other great films. Like,
this is the thing. It's that sort of like, I mean, I do movie quizzes, and one time I do a lot of like females in film round. Shut up, learn. And one of them was like, as of July 2019, Empire magazine released their top 100 greatest film characters of all time. Only 10 out of these 100 were women, and only 2 of these women never hold a weapon. Because that's another thing. Like,
who were the 2 characters? Do you remember?
Never hold a weapon are Edna Mode from The Incredibles and Amelie from Amelie.
Wow.
Everyone else holds a weapon. Now, whether that's Wednesday Addams holding a crossbow compared to Amy Dunn from Gone Girl, like killing everyone with knives and shit. Spoilers for Gone Girl. And then you've got your obviouses like your Sarah Connors and your Ellen Ripleys and that kind of thing. And like, you know, Ellen Ripley is in your top 3 all the time, and she's a brilliant character, don't get me wrong, but she was written as a man and then cast as Sigourney Weaver. And
she's not the only trope out there for females, is she?
this is the thing. This is what annoys me. It's like they seem to only like the female characters when they exhibit masculine traits. Like fucking Elle Woods isn't on there, and Elle Woods is one of the greatest characters of all time.
For sure. For sure.
Where is she? She's an icon. She's a great character.
Yeah. I think though, like, I think more and more when I'm like watching cinema now, and I think like, well, what am I looking for in a film? Actually, if I distill it down, what I'm looking for is something refreshing. And I think like that's why Parasite was the success that it was. Like it was like a wave of like refreshing, like we like certainly in this country, like we haven't seen this film before, and there's like real relish, I think, in like seeing a new story, not just a story told in a different way, and just like it's sort of, it feels like you can breathe, right, when you're watching a film that you're like, oh my god, like is it Hustle or Hustlers, the J-Lo film about pole dancers?
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
I came out of that film and like I was like, it just like, I've not seen that film. I've seen those characters presumably from a much more like male point of view, but like it was the first time I'd seen that story about those people, and it's just so exciting to see new so stories.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's why this stands the test of time, because it is like, it's certainly then like, you know, at 12, 13 years old, I wasn't going, this is a really refreshing story.
This is a really great tale that I've never seen before.
But deep down, there must have been something that just attracted. And, you know, me and my sisters, like, have quoted this film for, like, how many years has it been since 97? Like, nearly half our lives. Like,
I mean, it's so quotable. Like, it's so quotable.
Oh, so quotable.
And like
but
the,
I think
the
it's like
accents that they do are so fun.
Yeah. But I think it's that, like, even then, like, watching a film and being like, they're so cool and they're allowed to do this and they don't give a shit, and it like literally. They're okay, like they end up okay, you know.
What was really nice, I didn't really acknowledge it, I sort of did at the time, they are constantly eating junk. They are surrounded by like sweets and crisps and just crap, and they're just eating constantly. And I was like, fucking yes. Like, I don't know if this movie is trying to be like, women eat what you want and don't give a shit. Because there is a storyline where they're trying to lose weight and stuff, but usually women eat chocolate in movies when they're sad. Yeah. But
I think there's like a couple of squeaky moments in the film where you're like, oh, that still doesn't quite sit right. One of which is like the sort of, you were fat and I wore a back brace, but we were still cute. And you're like, like, maybe like, I don't want to unpick this film because I love it, but you're like, there's that. And the diversity issue where all of the speaking characters that aren't white work in the garage.
Stereotype.
But I do agree that like seeing them eating Doritos and what have you is
just because, not because they were sad or they were going through something or they were
and they're just getting burgers and fries when they want the businesswoman special.
Yeah, all the time getting like, I'm so happy it's hamburger day. Like, and I don't know if they were trying to pointedly be like, look, these women are weird because they're not on some diet, even though there are some lines where they're like, oh, I got like a really bad flu and that was the best diet I ever had because I lost so much weight.
Yeah,
I mean, there is very much a couple of 1997 bits where you're like, oh, this is 1997.
Yeah.
Ooh. Oh, they didn't care about that. And like in the modern day. But usually I'm such a little stickler for those things where I'm like, but this movie, the overall of it, I was just so like enamored by these characters.
You can kind of let the shackles fall away a bit, can't you?
Yeah,
and go,
I was a bit like, I haven't noticed that all the main characters are white yet because I don't know. Though maybe
it's fighting on so many other fronts. I think, you know.
Yeah.
It's like people who say they're, you know, that Hamilton isn't female driven enough, and you're like, Hamilton is fighting a whole load of you know, nothing can do everything. It's just got to all be pushing in the right direction. And I think
Yeah.
this film pushes enough in the right directions that you're like, someone else can take that side of things and eventually we'll get there.
Yeah.
But one film can't do it all.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's got some really good stuff. Great Halloween costumes. Like, the little dresses that they come out with are genuinely so cute. I love that they both dressed as, like, Madonna for their prom. So when everyone else was dressing like they were at their, like, debutante coming out in the South, now I'm a woman. What is that? Like, like, weird thing.
And in the 90s, like, there can't have been many people watching who are like, oh, Romy and Michelle's outfits are terrible. Like, you know, everyone's like, yes, Madonna.
Love it. More plastic, more like heel.
Yeah, for sure.
So good. But yeah, anything else you want to say?
I mean, we have to talk about the soundtrack to the film.
Oh my god, it's so good.
I've been listening to it on Spotify. Like you can run to it, you can dance to it, you can just have it on while you're working and feel amazing. Like,
it's so, honestly, the credits rolled and I was like, God, every song in that movie was an absolute banger. From like them trying to sing along to Footloose, which was so funny
because no one knows those lyrics.
It's so good. To like Heaven on Earth, where they're going up in the helicopter time after time, being used so well.
Opening on a No Doubt classic.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. It's such a good use of music.
Yeah.
So good.
Oh, I'd forgotten about them not singing Footloose. And now I'm re-experiencing it.
It's such a little gem of a movie. Like, I really want to go and get people to like go and watch it, and I want to rewatch it, and like it's gonna, I can feel it. It's gonna be a comfort movie. It's gonna be one of those movies on like a Sunday afternoon when it's like raining, and you just need something light and frothy, but it has enough depth to it that it's
like you can watch it on a
solid
hangover
snack.
and it's all gonna be okay. Like,
yeah, you don't have to be like, okay, now I'm gonna go watch this movie, like something like Parasite. It is wonderful, but you do need to be like, now
in
I'm
the
going to
headspace.
watch
Absolutely.
a movie. Whereas this, you can stick it on and you can enjoy it on so many different levels. You can enjoy it as a 12-year-old, you can enjoy it as a 32-year-old. Like, it's for everyone. And like,
I agree.
I would be interested to see what men think of it. I would genuinely be interested to see if there are reviews online from men that watched it and what they experienced and what they got from it. Because I guess, who would they align themselves with? Who would they sort of see themselves as? I guess you've only really got two characters that you can be like, aha, that's the one I relate to, which is Billy Christensen, who's a dick, and Alan Cumming, who's a dreamboat.
Unless it's, you know, like women have been doing with men, where, like, you know, there's enough cross-gender humanity in Romy and Michelle to be like, I felt that way in high school, or
I
you
would
know,
hope so.
I
really
want to do
hope
this,
that
but
they-
I feel the pressure to have succeeded here and there, and I would hope that, you know,
I hope
people could cross
Not
the
stick to
genders.
the-
Yeah, we'll see. I'll ask all the men I know what they think.
Yeah.
when I bully them into
Definitely.
watching it.
Watching it. Amazing. Anything else you want to say?
I think that's.
I think I've got through all of my. Oh, when Heather's like, with your hair and your legs and your long legs, walking on your legs and flipping your hair.
So I mean, literally, like, I think you could put Heather's lines together in a monologue and just have this like concentrated gold. I've written this down because I was like, I must remember this. When Romy's like, weren't you in love with Sandy? No, didn't you have a thing for Sandy? It's like, I did not have a thing. I did not have a thing. I did not have a thing. I was very much in love with him, and there's a difference. There's a difference. There's a difference. I have to go. And you're like, there are so many ways of saying this character is in love with this other character, but I've never seen that as the like proof that She definitely did have a thing.
And she like keeps looking to the woman behind her in the queue. I did not have a thing. I was in love with him. And then he walks back in at the reunion and she's like, "That's Sandy? What was I thinking?" It's like, yes! That's also such a vibe when you're like, oh my god, this guy from like my childhood. And then you see them as an adult and you're like, what's wrong with me?
100%.
God.
I had that 2 years ago. I went to see Jason Donovan's one-man show in Edinburgh. And it was exactly that Sandy Frink moment where I was... Because Jason Donovan was my first love.
Was he, did you have a thing?
Oh, I did not have a thing. We were very much in love. There's a difference. And you're sort of like, interesting.
Yeah. Looking at him like, I see. I see. Well, we've all learnt a lot today. Jason Donovan. I can imagine, because there's sort of Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat Jason Donovan from like the 90s. And then there's how I imagine Jason Donovan at the Palladium as the Pharaoh in Joseph and His Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat in 2019. Two very different beasts.
Yes.
So I get
90s
that.
Jason didn't have anything to prove, and I think 2020 Jason has too much to prove.
Bless him. What a dreamboat.
He he served his purpose.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. It's been a dream.
A joy. Who are you? You were brought to me via somebody else on, like, they were like, okay, so I have this friend and they do this and they do that and they do this as well and they also do that, and I was like, oh my god, who is this like incredible, hardworking, successful, feisty being? And then I did a Google and I was like, she has to be my friend now.
Lots of fingers in lots of pies.
Yeah,
it has
so,
not
like,
been a
brilliant
quiet
pies.
lockdown.
Good.
So yeah, the main thing at the moment is that I get to do theatre. So yeah, I run Open Book and Open Bar Theatre with one of my Romy and Michelle's, Nikki, and we have the Tempest going out to Fuller's pubs from the 1st of September throughout September, which is just like, we're so lucky that because we do outdoor theatre, we can go out there. So I spent the morning as Caliban swinging around our aerial rig, which was a really nice day. So yeah, that's sort of the main project on the go. But I also am part of Gaskin and Healy, which is a comedy double act. So I've spent a lot of lockdown sort of filming sketches my end, and Jen, another one of my Romy and Michelle's, she sort of filmed in her house and we've sort of green screen stuff together.
So cool.
And for fans of Romy and Michelle, I would recommend Bad Blood as a truly female sketch. But I also am in so Grace, who was on a few weeks ago, I'm part of the No Small Roles team with her. So episode 5 has just come out, so you can catch up. I play Juna Septhorne, who's an elderly lady, an elderly gnome. So lots of fingers in pies. But I think I've realised on lockdown, I'm not the person who's gonna sit and take stock. I'm gonna do things till I'm stressed out and then complain about what I've been doing and then go, well, you would be stressed out if you weren't doing this, Vicky.
Yeah, I completely feel that.
Yeah.
Like, lockdown ended and I was like, I need a holiday. And everyone was like, you just had 3 months off. And I was like, no, I didn't. I had 3 months of doing very important things all day, every day.
Yeah.
And now I need a break from that. I can't go back to work.
And that's why we're going to be friends forever now.
Forever! Genuinely. This is the first of many appearances that I will insist you make.
What?
Um,
No, this has been a delight to just chat movies with someone who loves movies as much as I do. It's really lovely.
It's so much fun. I can't wait to see what you come up with next. I am still obsessed with the fact that you got married in a cinema. It's literally the coolest thing I've ever heard.
I highly recommend.
Yeah, man. Now I'm like, maybe I should rethink that whole not getting married thing. Just can I marry a pet. Like, wait, no, that's like totally illegal, isn't it?
Well, you can't legally get married in a cinema anyway, so it was a highly illegal wedding.
Like a heist.
Yeah.
You were like snuck in the back.
Yeah.
They were like, don't tell anyone. It's super cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next time on Why This Film. Bye!
Thank you so much for listening. If you're enjoying Why This Film, why not head to iTunes and leave us a review? You can find us on Facebook at Why This Film Podcast, on Twitter at Why This Film Pod, and on Instagram at Why This Film Podcast. If you'd like to support the show, we are on Patreon at patreon.com/Why This Film Podcast. You can support us as a member from £3 a month, or just donate any amount you see fit towards the running of the podcast. There's so much that I'd love to do, and so much further that I'd like to go. So your support really does mean everything to me. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.